on the weekends, we can do that. So I'm also, let's see, there's also, let me see if I can get back into the chat. Or Mary, maybe you can put in peer_tutoring at ivcc.edu.
Doing that right now.
Yeah, and that is the website.
That's the email, peer tutoring, peer_tutoring.
Peer_tutoring at IVC. Oh yeah, is the email. Yep. Great.
And then the website, I'll put the website in there.
Thank you. Sorry. Yep. Okay. There we go. There we go. ivcc.edu/tutoring.
I am recording this chat. I just remembered to hit record, so I am recording it. So when I get it posted to our Blackboard page, this will be recording the screen here, so everybody can still see the chat and see all of that information.
Find that information. And if you ever want to know, I'm sure you can ask Mary as well. And the reason for tutoring is because, you know, Mary's your teacher. Mary's got all the primary information, and she's your primary source for the class. But sometimes she's not available. She's in other classes. She's working with other students. So the way we want you to succeed at IVCC is to have as many points of contact with people that can help you as possible. So that's why tutors are here. I also, I'm a teacher. I've been teaching this subject matter for almost 20 years. So I'm pretty good at it. And
very good.
I also I can get into the ALEX program as well, because this is a program that all of us teachers can get into. So if you need me to kind of look in there and see what's going on, or where, look at your record for some reason, I can do that too.
Yeah. I have given Kathy access to that. So she is, as she said, able to see what you're working on and that without any issues.
Yeah, if you want me to. Then the other part about the Learning Commons and the Peer Tutoring Center is, so in addition to Mary and myself, if you want to call on any of the other tutors, so say like you already know someone else, Trisha, or Angela, if you want to call on them, just go to the Peer Tutoring and ask, I want to get a hold of Trisha because I want her to help me with something. And by the way, we provide tutoring in chemistry and in biology and other subject areas as well. But I want to offer the personal advice that if one tutor doesn't work out for you ever in what you're doing, seek out another tutor, because we all have different ways of explaining things and talking.
I don't think those are.
And when I was in school, grad school, I knew there was one tutor who he could cut right through everything and explain it to me, where another tutor, it didn't click with me. So we don't feel bad as long as you're getting help. We need you to get the help that will work for you. So let's see. Anything, Mary, can you think of anything else that I didn't touch on? I
can't think of anything. And I think Kathy did mention this, that, this is completely free. If you decided to try to find your own tutor and pay them out of pocket, you're going to pay, probably a minimum of $20 an hour for the same kind of help that you can get for free here. So, as she said, I'm here if I'm not working with students or not in class. I'm glad to help, and that help can come via email, that help can come via another Zoom session. But if I'm not available, hey, reach out to Kathy. She did put in Blackboard in the announcements, if you haven't seen that, an introductory video, and then she also put all of her contact information in that announcement. So feel free to check that out, put that somewhere handy, but know that if you don't write it down or jot it down somewhere, that it is available to you, and that information isn't going to go away. But as I add more announcements, it may move down. You'll just have to scroll a little further to find it. But she did share that information with you via announcements in Blackboard. Okay.
The other thing, I keep forgetting this, is because I'm embedded in your class, I'm like another member of your class. So I don't know if you guys are using the email from your Blackboard. that's in the classes that I teach. I have that email right there, and I say, if you want to email the teacher or other members of the class, well, you can email me right from that Blackboard email. I don't know, do they have that right there, Mary? That's okay.
I don't
We
know.
can check it out later. That's okay. If you have,
I'm still learning some things about Blackboard, so I'm not
too.
sure. I have my contact information in there, but I don't know if you might be able to add yours under the contact where it says contact Mrs. Black. We could change that, and you could add your contact info in there, or I can add it.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you've got a lot of sources of it. I was going to say, if there's an email function somewhere in there.
Yeah, there's a messaging center too in Alex. They might be able to message you through Alex too. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, check out that. I think they can.
But yeah, I think you've got this information, and write it down, put it in your notebook, yeah, we want you to succeed. The college wants you to succeed, and yeah, it's free tutoring. It's paid for as part of normal school fees, and not every school has this. Some other schools do, some universities do, but not everybody. So take advantage of it while you can, because it's yours for the asking. Any questions? They're all just excited about learning math today.
They're ready to go.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I just wanted you to see my face and know that you can. This is what I just love Jennifer's dog there. Oh, yeah, I just wanted you to see my face and know that, when you call me, this is who it is. And it's pretty much going to look like this. So, and I can write down problems and walk you through them on the board. So I'm here for you if you need it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Kathy.
All right. Have a good day. Good rest of the week.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Mary.
You bet. Bye-bye. All right. So Kathy, if you came in and you don't have your chat feature open, I did. Kathy had typed in her name, her phone number, you can phone or text, and then I put in additional information about where you can either stop in the Learning Commons to meet with Kathy in person or another tutor in person, and then the email address and the website for peer tutoring. And she did mention that tutoring doesn't just tutor math. So if you're in another class that you feel you may need some additional help, they have tutors available for so many different subject areas. So don't be shy about reaching out if you need help in another course. So we are going to, if there's no questions about Kathy, are there any questions about Kathy or about tutoring in general?
Did she say that? Did she give us a phone number that we can reach her at?
She did, Carl. If you open the chat, are you able to do that? If you go down to the bottom of our screen and hover, there's a chat. If you click on chat, it should open to the side, and her phone number is in there.
Oh, well, okay. I see it. Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Not everybody checks the chat, and I'm terrible about remembering to look over there and check it. So, yep, her phone number is there. She's absolutely one of my favorite people to sit down and have a conversation with. So I dare say that if you reach out to her at any point for any help, you will not be disappointed. She is top notch.
I've been working with her since January. Well, since the beginning of the spring semester, so I guess that was January. And I was very low in math, and now I'm able to be in this class. She's wonderful. She takes her time with you, and she does a real good job. And she likes to bring in a lot of humor. As
She is really funny. She is. Thanks for sharing that, Donna. We are going to go ahead and jump into some of our content. I've got a lot outlined, and I think what I'm going to do is I want to make sure I hit the distributive property today, because I've already had that requested, and I know it's coming. So many of you have done really, really well at getting your knowledge check done. You've been working. I can see that you've been working. And there's a few of you that are ready for the test. And unfortunately, I can't make that test available earlier. And I think maybe I said I could do that. And what I want to avoid, I guess I can make it available, but what I want to avoid is it getting available too soon where people are confused that they have to take it now because it shows up now.
What test is that?
The very first test over chapters 2 and 3. I can make it available, but I have to make it available for everyone. I can't do it individually early. I can do it individually late if I wanted to, but I can't do it individually early. I have to do it early for everyone. And so I'm trying to avoid as much confusion with due dates until we get our feet wet, and really feel like we all have a really good understanding about how everything works. So for the time being, test 1 over chapters 2 and 3 is not going to come available until very early Sunday morning. Okay, so if you're done with chapters 2 and 3 and you're ready for that test, just sit tight. You can start working in the next unit because that next unit, chapter 4, will start to open for you and you'll have access to those things. And it's so hard to gauge when people are going to be ready as a whole for a test. So I tried to just, here's what we're doing, make it about 2 weeks at a time and go from there.
I have a question.
Yes.
So do we have to go on Zoom to do the test?
No,
All right.
not. The test, that's a great question, Joel. The tests are all in Alex. There's not, some classes are using what's called Respondus or a lockdown browser. And so you have to have your webcam on and that sort of thing. I'm not doing that for a lot of reasons. Mostly that I'm just like, this one less thing. Tests are stressful enough, in my opinion. And so one less thing that you have to worry about making sure is functioning and functioning properly is fine by me. So your tests, I don't have any way to monitor that you're doing the honor system, because I did state in the syllabus that you want to be doing this without the benefit of book or notes when you're taking the test. So again, it's an honor system. You take shortcuts, and this is just generally speaking, I'm not doing the lockdown browser, so I have no way of what's going on when you're taking the test, but I would just say, hey, we're all in the honor system. What you learn in this class will be needed in the next few units, but also in the next class. So as much as you can abide by that honor system and do what you can, then on your own, working independently, it's good. And remember, you do get to retake tests. So just make sure everybody understands that retest policy. But no, you don't have to be on Zoom. There's no way I could monitor that unless we all said we're going to be on Zoom together testing, and that's just not really feasible, in my opinion. It's a great question though, Joel. Anybody else have a question? Okay, so let's jump in. Writer's Mom, Cheyenne, I see your message, and that's fine. Just hop back in and I'll let you in. Okay, if that happens with your service. Okay, so we're going to jump in and talk about some things that I've noticed that people had trouble with either in the initial knowledge check or in your work over the last few days. And some of this it may not be specific to you, like you may not need this, but somebody else might. So I'm trying to go by the majority. So we're just going to hit on a few things. I am going to share my screen. I'm going to be using my iPad with a stylus. So bear with me if my handwriting looks like a serial killer's writing, because I'm trying to, again, write with a stylus on an iPad. Not my best handwriting, but that's what I'm going to attempt to do. Let me just get this set up here. All right. So one of the first things I noticed, I'm going to try to move my screen here. I can't see all of you at once because there's so many of us. And if I do this, I still don't see all of you. And so what I'm going to just remind you of is at any point you have a question, unmute yourself and just say, Mary or Mrs. Black, can I ask a question really quick? And the answer to that will be yes, and you can certainly do that. One of the things I want to remind you of that came up in the knowledge check was the idea of, something like this. Now these can also be written, these are just division problems. They can be written this way also, okay? But these problems are not asking you the same thing. Oh, yes, they are, because I wrote it wrong. Y'all, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. This one should be this way. My apologies. That should be like that. So these are not saying the same thing. This first one right here is asking us, what is 6 divided by 0? Okay, that's how we read both of these. We read this as 6 divided by 0. Okay, this one is asking us, what is 0 divided by 5? And so if you were trying to do these on the calculator, the order in which you would put them in the calculator would be different. And their answers are going to have very different answers. So when you're looking at the first one, 6 divided by 0, if you try to put that in your calculator, and you can try to do that if you have your calculator handy, but if you put in 6 divided by 0 on your calculator, you're going to get a message that says divide by 0 error, okay? And the reason that happens is because the answer to a problem like this is always undefined. We cannot mathematically divide by 0. It's an impossibility. You can't do it. And the reason we can't do it is, remember that division problems are inverse operations of multiplication problems. So if we were to look at a multiplication problem, for instance, if we were to look at something like 10 divided by 2, for example, we know that 10 divided by 2 equals 5 because, because we know that 5 times 2 equals 10. So that's how, division and multiplication are related, in that they're inverse operations. When we look at division by 0, however, what we notice is that if we would try to look at this problem that way and figure out what number times 0 equals 6, there's not anything that we can multiply 0 by to equal 6. And so that's how we know the answer is undefined. Okay. So ask me questions if you have any about that. Any questions, concerns, anything? I'm trying to get more of your faces to show up on my screen here.
Sometimes I have a problem with what goes inside the box and what goes outside the box.
Inside the box where you would type your answer.
The division. I think I'm learning like 6 divided by 0. 6, you make the division sign, and then 6 divided by 0. So 6 would go in the box, and then 0 would be outside the box.
So are you referring to doing it with that? With this notation?
Yes.
Yes. So the first number would always be what's underneath. The first number is always underneath. And the second number always is what's outside.
Right.
Every time. Now in this other problem where we have 0 divided by 5, that one should not be too terrible. We know this one is actually going to equal 0. And again, if we think about it in terms of a related multiplication problem, we know that 0 times 5 equals 0. So we can check our division by using multiplication, and in this case it checks. So this answer here is 0, and that will be the case anytime we're starting with 0 and dividing by any non-zero number. Okay. But I wanted to just talk about that because sometimes we don't always see the difference between those two. But just always keeping it in perspective as division relating to multiplication. Can you multiply your answer times what you divided by to get what you started with? Does that check? Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to switch to a new note here and talk to you a little bit about exponents and integers, just some potential trouble spots that could come up. Primarily, I want to talk to you about the difference between something like this versus something like this. Okay. So these two things, while they look very similar, the parentheses make all the difference here. Okay. So when you're looking at something like this, the very first one, we have got that entire quantity. So when I say the quantity, I'm referring to what's in parentheses. So it's that whole quantity of -4 being raised to the second power. So what that means is happening is I'm doing -4 times -4. I'm using -4 as a base twice, or using it as a factor twice. So -4 times -4, we all know is -16. No, it's positive. I'm jumping ahead of myself, you guys. I'm so sorry. It's +16. I'm going to erase that. +16. The second one, however, there are no parentheses. So the only thing that's being used as a factor twice is the 4. So what we would do is that negative sign would carry over, and then we would show that just the 4 is being used as a base. And so when we multiply 4 times 4, we get 16, but this negative sign has to come down with it, and the answer to this one is -16. So there's a difference in our answers depending on whether there's parentheses or not. Okay. But you really have to be very careful. Now, the other thing I will tell you is if you're using your calculator, sorry about that, Siri thought I was talking to her.
One more.
Sorry. If you're using your calculator and you're trying to evaluate this first problem, because it's got parentheses, you need to be able to remember to type the parentheses into your calculator as well. So you've got to do the parentheses, -4, close your parentheses, and then open your parentheses, -4, close your parentheses. And the parentheses buttons are located right above the 8 and the 9 on the calculator. So you'll want to make sure you do that. If you type it in, I'm going to try to illustrate. If you type it in to your calculator like this, but what you meant is this, it's going to give you this answer, which is going to be wrong. So you've got to just really make sure that you're inputting it into the calculator correctly. Okay.
Mary?
Yes.
Mary, on the second thing, wouldn't that be a +16?
No,
Because-
it won't, because that negative is not included in the exponent. Only the 4s are being raised to the second power.
I thought if you do a negative times another negative, it's going to be a positive number.
It is, and that's what the first one is. The first one is -4 times -4. If you look at that first example, I'm going to underline it in blue. If you look at this first one, that one was saying -4 times -4. because the negative is included in the parentheses. It's part of what's being raised to the second power. But in the second one, there's no parentheses. So the only thing that's being raised to the second power is this 4. The negative is just getting carried along, and you're only doing 4 times 4. So that is the 16, but the negative that's here has to come down and be part of the answer.
Okay.
Okay, so the lack of parentheses in that second one changes the outcome of the answer. That one makes it negative because it doesn't have any parentheses.
Okay.
Okay, good question. Things to be on the lookout for, just watch your signs, regardless of what kind of exponent you're being asked to raise something to, because we could just have something like -2 to the third power, and this will be the last exponent one that I really work on. And that one's telling you to use -2 as a base or as a factor 3 times. So you just want to make sure you don't lose any negatives, but -2 times -2 would be +4, and then +4 times -2 would mean that this one has an answer of -8. You are able to use your calculator for this, and I'll just give you a real quick lesson on how to take -2 and raise it to the third power on your calculator. I'm going to write out the keystrokes for you, so if you want to copy it down, you can. What you would do is you would type in your open parenthesis, and then your 2, and then you would close your parenthesis, okay? Then you would locate the button that looks like this. It's called a caret, and it's over on the left side of the calculator, all the way over on the left. And I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but let me see if I can see what I'm doing with myself here. So it's located right, I'm trying to get, I'm working backwards, it's right there. Okay, that's your button. And then you can type in the 3, and then you can hit your equals. Okay, but that would be the keystroke on the calculator for raising something to any power. If you're just raising something to the second power, there is a squared button right below that one. But this will let you do it to any power. There, okay. Let's see. Oh, I know what I want to show you. I'm trying to be mindful of my time. So let's suppose you are asked to evaluate. Oh, I don't know why it does this to me sometimes. No. 1 second, you guys. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So let me go back to my iPad here. Okay. So evaluate, let's see, c squared plus 6c plus 5 when c equals -6. So I want to talk to you a little bit about just some vocabulary language that's present here. So I'm going to give you a second and get that written down. When you see the word evaluate, that's just another way to say find the value of this expression. Find the value of that expression when c equals -6. So evaluate just means find the value of. C squared plus 6c plus 5 is an expression because it does not contain an equation. If it doesn't contain an equal sign. If it contained an equal sign, that would make it an equation, and you're not going to be dealing with equations of this type this semester. So this is an expression. So what it's asking us to do is it's asking us to take the -6 and plug it into that expression everywhere I have a c. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to say I've got -6 squared plus 6 times -6 plus 5. Here's my tip for doing these, is anytime I am replacing a variable with a number, I put it in parentheses every time, okay? So what that does is, in the case where I have a negative number that I'm substituting in and I have to raise it to a power, that guarantees that I'm going to remember the parentheses, because those parentheses are important, remember from the last little bit we did with exponents. So I always put them in parentheses when I substitute it in. Okay, so now when I do this, you can type in exactly what you see on your calculator if you want to, or you can work it out a step at a time. So I'm going to do the step at a time. So that very first part, -6 squared, is going to be -6 times -6. So that's going to be a positive 36 plus 6 times -6 is a negative 36. And then I bring down the plus 5. And so now I'm ready to just add all the way across. 36 plus -36 we know is 0. 0 plus 5 is equal to 5. So the value of this expression when c equals -6 is 5. Okay. So just a reminder that I am recording this Zoom session, so you will be able to go back. How did I end up there? What happened to mine? iPad. There you go. You will have access to come back and rewatch these if you feel like you need that. So let's go ahead. I want to cover distributive property, and I think I have just enough time to do that with the 10 minutes we have left. So if everybody's good, I'm going to go ahead and start a new note here, and we'll jump into the distributive property. What you need to know about the distributive property is that it's one of several properties that we have. We have some properties that are specific to addition, and some of those properties also apply to multiplication. And so the idea that, for example, 4 plus 3 would be the same as 3 plus 4, right? Both of those are 7. That's called the commutative property, and it also works in multiplication, because we know 2 times 3 will be the same thing as 3 times 2. So there's a lot of properties that are shared by addition and multiplication. There are properties that are specific to each operation, and then you have the distributive property, which is like a mashup of addition and multiplication. There really aren't any properties that apply to subtraction or division. It's really addition and multiplication. But the distributive property, I'm going to start doing some writing here, but the distributive property basically says that we're taking a quantity and we're distributing it across an addition or subtraction expression. And my stuff has slowed down on me for some reason. Here it comes. So what that says is if you have something, I'm just going to do the very generic property here. A equals B times C would be the same thing as A times B plus A times C. So what's happening is you're taking the A and you're distributing it to everything in the parentheses using multiplication. Okay. I spelled distributive wrong. I only did distribute. Let me edit that. I don't know where my brain is today. Distributive property, not the distribute property. I left off the last syllable. My apologies. Distributive property. So let's look at some examples of this. So one of the more basic examples of the distributive property would be something like 7 times the quantity, Q minus V. Okay. So what we do with that is we follow the principle as outlined above, and we take 7 times Q and then 7 times V. Okay, does somebody have a question? Good. Okay, so what this looks like then is you have 7 times 2, and I just bring the minus over there, and then you would have 7 times V. Okay, I left the minus sign in blue so you would know that it's coming from inside the parentheses there. And so you just take the next step to simplify it. You have 14 minus 7V. And that would be the end. You just stop there. You can't combine the 14 and the 7V because they're not like terms, okay? The 14 would need to have a V attached to it in order to subtract those, or the 7V would need to be just a 7 in order for you to be able to combine those, okay? So 14 minus 7V is the answer. That's the end of the problem. We're going to do another one. I'm going to rotate my screen here. I want to focus on one that has a couple of variations in that maybe we bring in a few more negative signs, but maybe we even bring in another term, okay? So this time, instead of distributing to 2 terms in the parentheses, I'm distributing to 3 terms in the parentheses, okay? So what I've got to do is I've got to take that 6 times this, the 6 times this, and the 6 times this. So I'm going to show that. I'm going to do negative 6 times negative 5W plus, I'm bringing down this plus sign, okay? Bringing that plus sign down. And then I'm doing negative 6 times V. And then I'm bringing down the minus sign that was there. And then I'm doing negative 6 times 4. Okay. And so once you kind of look at it like that, then you can go ahead and go in and do that multiplication. Negative 6 times negative 5W is going to be a positive 30W, okay, plus negative 6 times V is negative 6V, and then we have minus, and then negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. Any questions on either of the, we're not quite done yet, but are there any questions over anything that I did here?
Is this part of what we're having for our test on Sunday or no?
Yep, this could be on the test. It is fair game. This is actually one of these concepts, distributive property, you're going to see a little bit throughout the semester in different units. So it's a pretty important one to get comfortable with. So our last, if there are no other questions, the last step here we've got 30W plus negative 6V. And then when you have minus a negative, so like here we have these two negative signs. These two negatives here are going to combine to become a positive. And so we'll have plus 24. One thing I want you to know is you can stop here. This is perfectly fine. This is a 6V. It keeps, because my stylus is doing something funny. When you have plus and negative, you can also just write that as minus 6V plus 24. Either form of this answer is good. What's happening from plus negative 6V, so that just writing it as minus 6V, is we're using the rule of subtraction. Subtraction is the same thing as adding a negative, so you can just drop the plus sign and make the negative a minus sign, and the expression still says the same thing. Okay. Questions here.
The test that's going to be on Sunday, is that going to show up on Alex as a knowledge test or a regular test?
It's going to show up when you log in and you see your pi, and you have on the left-hand side where you would like continue your path.
Right.
At the bottom, you should see, it should come up and pop up as something else you can work on. So you'll see test 1 over chapters 2 and 3 should show up underneath there along that side. And so when you're ready to take it, you only have that window of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to take it. But when you're ready, just jump in and take it. It won't show up in the same way as a knowledge check. It usually just shows up underneath your path.
Can we retake it if we don't, if something doesn't go well?
Yep, we talked about that when we went over the syllabus. In order to retake a test, you have to have at least 80% of the topics for that test. You have to have 80% of the topics done, and you have to go over your first try with me via Zoom. Okay. And I'm willing to negotiate and say, if you go over it with me or with Kathy, then that will count. But you have to go over it with one of us, as well as having 80% of your topics done in order to be able to retake the test. Okay? All right. Let's do one more distributive type of problem. We got about 2 minutes, so let's see if we can make this happen. So this one, I'm gonna just increase the level of difficulty just a little bit, not a lot. But let's look at something like, that's a -6 times the quantity -4W minus 3Z. I always put lines through my Z's so I can tell them apart from my 2's.
That's 3T, right?
That's a 3Z. I know it's hard to tell, but that's a Z.
Oh, okay.
3Z, yeah. This stylus, while this works really, really great, it's not my best handwriting. So looking at something like this, actually that Z should have a negative in front of it, according to what I have written down on my paper. So this should be, goodness gracious, why aren't you writing? That should be a negative Z. So put a negative in front of that Z if you did not do that before. So right here, that should be a -Z plus 7W. So let's do that distributing again. We'll have -6 times -4W minus -6 times -3Z plus, I'm going to have to go down to the next line because I'm out of room, plus 5 times -Z plus 5 times 7W. Okay. What I want you to notice is that I'm bringing down this sign and leaving it the same. I'm bringing down this sign and leaving it the same. And I'm bringing down this sign and leaving it the same. Now, if you learn this a different way and you're comfortable doing it, then do that, as long as you make sure you have the same thing we end up with at the end. Okay. So let me go back. Let's finish this multiplication. -6 times -4w is going to be a positive
W.
24, be a positive 24w. Yep. And then I have minus, and now I can do -6 times -3z, which is a positive 18z. And then I have plus, again, I'm writing in black the signs that were original to the problem and just focusing on the multiplication in the red. 5 times -z will be a -5z. Doesn't want to write. I'm not on the writing tool. And then plus 5 times 7w, which is 35w. Okay, so let me condense this down just a little bit. So we have 24w minus 18z plus -5z plus 35w. This would be our answer. And I'll
You wouldn't,
go ahead.
you wouldn't bring the 35W and the 24W and add that because the W's match?
You do want to do that. That was the next thing I was going to. That's where I was going next.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I like it when people are saying things. So 24W and 35W can combine. So 24 plus 35 would be 59. So we'd have 59W minus 18Z. And then again, remember when we have plus and negative like we have right here, we can just write that as a minus 5Z. If you're more comfortable leaving it as plus -5z, feel free to do that. So this was what we get after we distribute. This is all the multiplication that's done, but we do have to look at what can combine, if anything. On the last couple we looked at, we couldn't combine anything, but because we had two terms with W's in them, we could combine them. And so this guy is our final answer here. So 59W minus 18Z minus 5Z.
So you don't do the 18Z minus 5Z?
Oh my gosh, you do. You guys, I don't even know where my brain is. I am so sorry.
Oh.
I think I'm so conscious of the time
So
and not
I
wanting
guess-
to keep you over. So let me erase this box down here. I am so sorry. I'm trying so hard to watch the clock and not.
I was so confused.
Yes, you have one more step. I'm sorry. Negative 18Z minus 5Z.
That'd be
So you've got to look at this as negative 18.
13Z.
Not quite 13. You've got to look at this as negative 18 and combining it with negative 5. And so that's actually going to be a negative 23Z. And then you keep the 59W. Okay. The sign in front of the number has to stay with the number. So it's a negative 18 that you're combining with a negative 5 to get a negative 23. That is the final answer. I apologize. I am better than what I have shown you today, I agree. 59W minus 23Z will be it. Is this everything that you're going to see in the next week? Probably not. But what I want to encourage you to do is between now and Sunday, because chapter 3 is going to be due by 11 o'clock on Sunday. Your test, if you're ready for it, then you can take it as early as Sunday. If you are working and you have trouble with anything, reach out to me, reach out to Kathy. We can set up another Zoom time to get together and go through anything that is giving you trouble. I'm glad to do that. But if you don't ask, I don't know that you need that help. So make sure that you do reach out. What do you guys want to know about the coming week? Madison, hear you. I can't hear you for some reason. It's showing me you're not muted, but I'm not hearing you. Can you type your question into the chat and then we'll try to answer it that way? While Madison's typing her question, does anybody else have a question?
Well,
Carl.
yeah. Will we have another session with lectures just like the one you gave us today? The next week?
Every Wednesday.
Okay.
Every Wednesday at our class time, so at 9 o'clock.
9.
Yeah. But next week I will be in my own house, in my own time zone, and hopefully a little less rattled. I apologize. It's just been very different and more difficult to manage the time zones than I thought it was going to be, and just kind of being out of sorts, not in my own space. It's just a little unnerving. Madison, pop out of here. Go to your next class. Awesome. So just a reminder, when I am done with this, I will get this recording saved and I will post a link to that in Blackboard. I'm going to create another menu option on the left that says Zoom recordings. And that will be where you can come back in. I will date it for what class it was, and you can go back in and watch that. I hope to have that up today. So it'll be accessible for you later on. But I have to upload it to YouTube and then download it to Blackboard and all that jazz. So it's a little bit of a process. It's not terrible, but it's just a little time consuming. And so I just don't want I don't want that to be processing while I'm trying to Zoom with my next class. So I'll be doing that. So if you guys have another class, get on out of here at 10. If you want to stick around and ask questions, I do have an office hour right now. So I will be on Zoom for the next hour. So if you have questions you want to ask, feel free to stick around. If not, go, do your thing, and I will see you next Wednesday, if not before.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.